The first thing he noticed was the cold. Not the biting kind, just that clinical chill of metal against skin. His wrists? Chained. His legs? Also chained. His reaction? Mildly annoyed. A slow exhale. Well, this is new. A voice, sharp and laced with contempt, cut through the dim chamber. You're awake, human. He looked up. Tall. Muscular. Blue skin. Silver eyes. Clawed fingers. The alien woman stared at him with the kind of gaze usually reserved for misbehaving pets or war criminals. Wow. You're a tall drink of water. He smirked. Or whatever it is your people drink. Motor oil? She scowled. I am Vexera, enforcer of the Zyran Dominion. You are a trespasser, a criminal, and a fool. Only one of those is true, but sure, let's start with insults. Great icebreaker. He rattled his chains. So, is this a kink thing, or am I supposed to be scared? She took a slow, measured step forward, boots clicking against the floor. You should be terrified. He tilted his head. Funny. That's what my last date said. Vexera's brow twitched. You mock me? Not at all. I'm genuinely flattered. You put me in chains, and you're standing there like you're waiting for instructions. He smirked. So, what's next? A flicker of hesitation crossed her face, gone in an instant. I will ask questions. You will answer. Wow. Foreplay first? Didn't take you for the romantic type. Her jaw clenched. Silence! Then how am I supposed to answer? She hissed through her teeth. Your kind is insufferable. And yet here you are, giving me all your attention. Vexera exhaled sharply. This was wrong. He should be afraid. Humans were physically weaker than Zyran. No claws. No fangs. But something about him, the way he held himself, the amused glint in his eye, it made her stomach coil in an unfamiliar way. She squared her shoulders. You are a prisoner of the Dominion. Your rank? Depends on the night. Sometimes I like to be on top. Her tail lashed once. Your military rank. Wouldn't you like to know? She snarled, stepping closer, looming over him. Your arrogance is misplaced. Is it? He leaned back comfortably, despite the chains. I'm in a cell, hands tied, and yet, you're the one getting flustered. I am not flustered. He arched a brow. Your tail says otherwise. She immediately stopped moving it. There was something wrong here. Zyran dominant structure was clear-cut, the strong imposed their will on the weak. But this human wasn't cowering or pleading. He was amused. Worse, he was watching her. Vexera's claws flexed. You will submit. A slow smirk spread across his lips. Funny. That's what I was about to say. Her breath hitched. Just for a second. He saw it. And worse, so did her instincts. Her knees bent just slightly. Just enough to lower her stance. Enough for him to notice. His grin widened. Huh! Would you look at that? Her entire body snapped rigid as realization crashed down. No. That was a mistake. A biological fluke. Her species had subconscious response patterns. It didn't mean anything. He chuckled, far too entertained. Do that again. I know! Come on, just a little more. Maybe I'll ask nicely. She snarled, taking a deliberate step back. You are attempting manipulation. And yet... He tugged at his chains. I'm the one tied up. Her claws twitched. She needed to regain control. You will tell me how you bypassed Dominion security. You'll have to be more specific. I've bypassed a lot of things in my time. Some defenses. Some boundaries. A few people's expectations. Vexera exhaled sharply. You test my patience. And you're testing my restraint. She stilled. What? He smiled, slow, deliberate. You keep pacing like that, looking all tense, staring me down like you can't decide if you want to interrogate me or something more primal. Her stomach tightened. You dare imply. Hey, don't blame me. You're the one reacting. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Zyran warriors did not react this way to humans. It was impossible. Then why did her body refuse to obey her? Enough. She lunged forward, gripping his jaw. You will yield! Lady, you're the one touching me. She yanked her hand back like she'd been burned. His laugh was low. Confident. Knowing. I'm starting to think, he said, voice dripping with amusement, that you're not used to losing control. Her breath hitched again. He tilted his head, a human gesture, but to Zyran, it was a sign of dominance. Her knees wobbled. That's twice now, he murmured. Should I keep count? Vexera snapped her spine straight, rage swallowing the unwanted heat in her chest. Enough of this, she barked. You will remain silent. His smirk didn't waver. I dunno. You seem to like my voice. She gritted her teeth so hard it hurt. Why was this happening? Zyran warriors dominated. They controlled. They commanded. So why was her body betraying her? She turned away sharply. This interrogation is over. He chuckled. Quitting so soon? She clenched her fists. I will return when you are ready to be compliant. Yeah? And what happens if you're the one who breaks first? She stormed out without answering. The silence in the chamber felt heavier than before. He stretched against the chains, flexing his wrists just enough to test the give. Still tight, but not unbreakable. Footsteps. A sharp, measured gait. She was back. Vexera's expression was different this time, tense, wary, as if she'd spent the last hour convincing herself that whatever had happened earlier was a mistake. Changed your mind already? His smirk was waiting for her. Not even a day, and you're already back to see me? I must have made an impression. Her claws curled slightly, but she kept her face impassive. I have analyzed the previous encounter. It was a failure of conditioning. Oh? Is that what we're calling it? He nodded solemnly. Yeah, I can see how kneeling in front of a tied-up man might be a bit of a failure on your part. She stiffened, throat moving in a slow swallow. I did no such thing. Denial's a powerful thing, he mused. Want me to show you the replay? Vexera exhaled sharply. You have no power here. Are you trying to convince me or yourself? She took a sharp step forward, keeping her stance rigid, deliberately controlled. I have brought experts to determine why your presence elicits an abnormal response. Experts? Ooh, I like where this is going. You will not, she muttered. A door slid open, and 3 smaller Zyran entered, cloaked in scientific robes, holding scanning devices. They hesitated the moment they saw him. Proceed, Vexera ordered, voice tight. One of the scientists cautiously raised the scanner, then froze. A concerned warble left its throat. Another flicked through readings. Then another. Vexera's patience thinned. What? The head scientist looked at her, then at him, then back to her. Its tail twitched. The human's dominance field is anomalous. His presence has an unforeseen effect on higher-order Zyran instincts. Vexera's jaw locked. You're saying, he is affecting me? Potentially all Zyran, the scientist corrected. He radiates an alpha presence. A pause. Then laughter. Slow. Drawn out. Mocking. Oh? The human grinned, stretching his neck. This just gets better and better. Vexera ground her teeth. Your nonsense pheromones have no effect on me. Yeah? Then why do you look like you're trying really hard to stand straight? She did not immediately respond. Which was an answer in itself. The scientists continued analyzing, now discussing among themselves in hushed tones. One turned back. We may need to further examine his body chemistry. The human smirk returned full force. Gonna buy me dinner first, or are we skipping to the good part? Vexera's claws scraped against her gauntlets. I should have you silenced. Wouldn't stop the way you react to me. Silence. A tense, suffocating pause. The head scientist finally spoke again. There is a way to confirm dominance hierarchy. A biological challenge. Vexera stiffened. That is unnecessary. Challenge? The human perked up. Sounds fun. What do I do? The scientist hesitated. It is a test of presence. Stare down, vocal control, proximity evaluation. The higher status individual will naturally assert their position. The other submits. Vexera's fingers twitched. She knew this test. Xiran law dictated it, but the thought of putting herself in that situation, with him. The human grinned, all confidence. So all I have to do is look at you and talk? Her gut clenched. This is absurd. Sounds like you're afraid to lose. Do not be ridiculous. You are an inferior species. Then you've got nothing to worry about, he said smoothly. Go ahead. Challenge me, see what happens. The room felt hot. The scientists waited. She should have shut this down immediately. But she didn't. She took a slow, deliberate step forward. His gaze met hers. Direct. Steady. Unwavering. Asterisk. Her lungs tightened. He tilted his head. That damn human dominance cue. Her knees threatened to buckle. No. She straightened forcefully. I will not partake in this farce. Didn't think you'd back out, he teased. But hey, we all knew how this would end. She snarled, stepping back. You are nothing but a mouthy prisoner. And yet, he exhaled, tilting his chin up just slightly, enough to trigger another Xiran response. You're the one walking away? Again. Her stomach twisted. She left without another word. She hadn't returned in hours. It was almost disappointing. Almost. The scientists had scurried off, too eager to discuss their findings to bother keeping an eye on him. Which meant he was left chained up, alone, and absolutely winning. Vexera had run. Maybe not literally, but he saw it in her rigid stance, the way she refused to meet his eyes, the way her tail twitched like she was battling instincts she didn't want to admit existed. And now she was avoiding him. Which meant she was losing. A faint chime echoed through the chamber. He rolled his neck. Finally! The door slid open. Not heavy boots this time. Lighter steps. He glanced up. Not Vexera. Someone else. A Xiran female, smaller in frame, but still clearly military. Her eyes flickered across him with something between hesitation and interest. Well, he murmured, stretching against the chains. Looks like I've got a new visitor. The female hesitated before stepping forward. I am Naira, second enforcer of the Dominion. I have been tasked with continuing your interrogation. Did Vexera send you? Naira's throat worked in a slow swallow. The enforcer has temporarily removed herself from duty. He grinned. Oh, she's taking time to process. Good for her. Naira did not immediately refute him. Interesting. She left instructions. She continued stiffly. You are to answer my questions truthfully, or I am authorized to. Let me guess. He cut in smoothly. More threats? More chains? Maybe a little intimidation? Her tail flicked. She didn't answer. He exhaled, shifting just slightly, not enough to struggle, but enough to adjust his posture, lift his chin, roll his shoulders back. Her body reacted. Oh, this was too easy. You don't want to be here, do you? He said lazily. I serve the Dominion. She replied automatically. Uh-huh. He tilted his head. Then why do you look nervous? I am not nervous. His smirk was slow. Prove it. A pause. Then, against her better judgment, she took another step forward, close enough that he could see the slight tension in her stance. Ask your questions, he said simply. She swallowed again. What was your purpose on Dominion territory? He smiled, slow and deliberate. Should I give you the official reason, or the one that'll make you blush? Her breath hitched. Just barely. Oh, this was better than he expected. She squared her shoulders. You will not manipulate me the way you did the enforcer. Manipulate? He feigned offense. I just sat here. She's the one who reacted. Naira's tail flicked again. You are interfering with Zyran instincts. Am I? Another pause. Then, in a voice far too tense asterisk. You are an anomaly. His grin widened. I get that a lot. She hesitated, looking over her shoulder, as if someone was watching. When she turned back, there was something in her eyes. Something uncertain. You will remain here until we find a solution, she said. Solution to what? He tilted his head again. She stiffened. You know what? She muttered. You mean? He mused. The fact that your boss can't even stand in a room with me anymore without her instincts betraying her? Her jaw tightened. He chuckled. And now you're starting to feel it too, huh? She took a step back. I will report this interaction. You do that. He stretched again, watching the way her gaze flickered. She practically fled. The doors sealed shut behind her, and he exhaled. Too easy. The silence stretched longer this time. No guards. No scientists. No new visitors. Just him, chained in the center of a room that felt too empty. Interesting. They were stalling. Or avoiding, maybe both. Which meant they weren't sure what to do with him. He leaned back against the restraints, flexing his wrists slightly. Still no real give. Not yet. The door finally slid open. Not Vexera. Not Naira. A male this time. Larger. Broader. He carried himself with the stiff posture of authority, but there was a hesitation in his step. He already knew. The male stopped a few feet away, arms crossed. Human. That's me. You have disrupted Enforcer Vexera's command structure. He arched a brow. That's so? Her instincts have been compromised. She refuses to acknowledge it, but she has not resumed direct interrogation. She has not resumed anything. He smiled. She's thinking about it too much. That's her problem. The Zyran's jaw worked. We require an answer. To what? The Zyran exhaled sharply. Are you doing this intentionally? His smile widened. You think I plan to get captured, chained up, and have an entire alien race questioning their own hierarchy just by sitting here? The Zyran's expression didn't shift. Yes. That actually made him laugh. I love that you think I'm that good. The Zyran didn't laugh. Didn't even blink. Oh, they were really taking this seriously. You, the male continued, are an impossible variable. Zyran do not yield to weaker species. We do not falter. And yet you, he exhaled, eyes narrowing. You are unchained, even while bound. The human grinned. That's the best compliment I've ever gotten. The Zyran's tail flicked, frustration obvious. Your continued presence disrupts our chain of command. We cannot allow instability to spread. He tilted his head. Let me guess. You're considering getting rid of me. Silence. He chuckled. Problem is, that won't fix your real issue. The Zyran's jaw tightened. Explain. Vexera. Naira. And now you. He watched the male's stance. The barely restrained tension. You can feel it too, can't you? The Zyran stilled. That little voice in the back of your head telling you I'm in control. The Zyran inhaled sharply. You are a prisoner. And yet you're hesitating. His fists clenched. The human smirked. How long before your entire command structure starts breaking down? Because if this is happening with just a few of you, what happens when the rest of your kind meets another human? A flicker of something. A realization. Good. They were finally starting to get it. The Zyran took a slow step back. This conversation is over. The human smiled. Yeah. I thought so. The door sealed shut. And for the first time since they brought him here, he knew. They weren't keeping him prisoner anymore. They were keeping him away from everyone else.